Um, Thank you very much for this invitation. Hello, I'm Roshna Wakil, today's speaker. I'll just turn off the video and I'll start sharing soon. Before starting, I would like to really thank um, Principal Dr. Ranjit Patil and Science Faculty in charge Mrs. Trupti Madam and OS Mrs. Shweta Diwar and very much to Coordinator Dr. Sunil Gaikwad. Our relationship goes a little way back because we did our master's study together, so that's how we know each other. Thank you for this invitation, and it's my honor to speak on this topic. It's very important and vital for all the young bright minds there to know how they can progress in career in with their subject of their choice, that is chemistry and science. So I would just, a brief moment, I will just try to share my screen now. Okay. I hope everyone can see it.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So to start with, yeah, it's an honor again. So the very important fact that why women must progress in their career is, at least if we take the case of our country, we know that about 60% of our population is under the age of 25, as our prime minister always puts it. So that actually rounds about 600 million young minds, and out of that at least half of the population is female population. And all of us bright young minds, that will be a total of 300 million women who are there proceeding, to make wonders in this world. You can do a lot of you can come up with a lot of solutions to current existing problems. So at least being a part of science and chemistry community, how you can progress, I hope that I can do a little bit of justice and I can give you a brief idea of how you can proceed step by step into a bright, broader career in future. So when we think of career opportunities for chemistry students, there are always these four things that mainly pop up in our minds. That is industry, higher education, or some government jobs to just settle your life, or it is working for yourself, that is doing a freelancer job. But it's a very broad category to put. But if you look, chemistry can open a lot of areas, myriad of areas where you can actually progress. It's not only subject wise that, chemistry, the four main branches when people think of organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, biochemistry, it's not like that. It's a very broad theme. People can go into multiple branches using this. It could be medicine, forensics, cosmetics, environmental. Many of them are industry oriented. There are many of them which are higher education or research oriented. So you can always choose according to your own skill set or your abilities of where you must go and do your proceed with your career. You have many other industries like food industries. You have even analytical services which are ensuring quality of the products that come into the market. And there is this whole section: further education, academia, research, tutoring and teaching. This is something that everyone knows about. That's a part of higher education. But besides that, chemistry also does open door to many other very non-traditional, non-conventional jobs like law, sales, computing, web design. And one would wonder, how does it really come about? It's that if you have a very basic foundation of science or chemistry or the knowledge, you can use in many of these sectors. Be it armed services, you can actually help in developing weapons or weaponry or arms. And if it is just simple scientific writing, you can write blogs, you can educate people, inform people about basic sciences to multiple people. So this can actually take a form of a job in future. You can be in publishing, you can be in marketing, and even law. One would wonder, why law? It's about patenting. So if there is an invention in chemistry or science, you can always patent it. You can use it for your own gains, um, in the future. So the very broad question that pops up in everyone's head is, what can you do with a chemistry degree? There are very most common jobs that most of the people are aware of. That is research chemist, college professor's job, material chemist, scientist job. So people land up in industries like, polymer industries or glass or material industries. That's very common theme of it. And there are also specialized unique jobs like food scientist, which is actually a very currently hot running topic. And at least in developed countries, there's a whole scope for food scientist. And there is definitely forensic scientist who investigates upon murders and stuff. And you could be a pharmaceutical scientist. Today's day and age has a lot of, now as the picture of pandemic unfolded just last year, you see how the pharmaceutical chemistry has come about. The the main the broad use of it is clear to people. And there are also non-traditional jobs such as sales representative. That's also an important job though. And you could be a nuclear engineer, you could be an environmental consultant. And the other potential jobs are 100 for sure high school teachers or a pharmacist job. But most of these jobs in future are going to be very redundant. That is, it's going to be replaceable because it's robotics, artificial intelligence, and computing. It has taken over the world. So a few of the jobs will have like compared to the number of availability, it is going to reduce in future. So all of you young minds, you should always keep in mind of what the future shows you, and where you will have a stable career and a career growth profile. Always opt that is what my suggestion would be. And yeah, here this whole picture gives you an idea of how much wage or how much salary you might get being in one job like a college of professors job. So it's in dollars though. So you can see that being a material scientist will get you more financial benefits. And also this has, very less chance of robots replacing this job because there is a lot of mind and research involved in it, and the requirements in the future are going to always change and modify themselves. And there is a research chemist job which is, it has a likelihood of being taken away but 10% by the robots. It's because that most of those the traditional research, the way it was carried out in previous times, has really changed because there is a lot of computational chemistry involved in it. It's a lot of equipments have been modified. So earlier, if one would really, for example, if somebody was doing crystallography, one person could write thesis by just solving 3 or 4 structures. But in today's day and age, it is very quick. One can actually achieve that in lightning speeds. In a day, you can solve few structures. So it has evolved in that manner. So there are certain jobs which will have a very strong replacement in future. So that has to be really kept in mind when you really choose a subject in future. And there are these unique jobs like food scientists, uh, definitely making additives and a lot of conservatives in food material. And there is also like a quality assurance industry that runs based on that. So this kind of jobs are also a choice for young people like you. And pharmaceutical chemists, medicinal chemists, um, pharma jobs are always there. So this is something which is very your job prospect will get you a lot of financial gains, and also it's always going to be in demand. And you could be a forensic scientist based on your interest because it involves all areas of science. You can have wide knowledge which you can put into. And there are these non-traditional jobs also like being a nuclear engineer, pharmacist, and environmental consultant, etc. But these two jobs, like medical lab technologists, most of the people tend to sort of take a vocational course soon after their bachelor degrees, and then they can become, these are the easier jobs to get into. So please, my suggestion would be never be attracted to these because they have a very high propensity of getting replaced by robots in future. Even being a sales representative, most of the jobs are taken away by robots. So when you choose a career platform, sorry, please be sure that you have an idea of which kind of areas in science is going to evolve in future. And select your career based on that. Sorry. My very strong suggestion to all of the bachelor students, and today I know that the audience, it's mostly bachelor students. My very strong suggestion would be that please take up post graduation studies, because in future, um, the picture, the way it is evolving, is that the higher education is really needed for any sort of jobs, because it's going to be more a skill based market in future. It's not that when you just finish bachelor's you have wide knowledge about certain things. It's like a basic knowledge of everything, but you don't stand out because you don't have extra information in your hand about one particular subject or a few other subjects that are related to that for the job. So in India, if you look at the structure, there are different kind of universities, central and state universities, one like Pune University. There are state private universities where which are funded by state, and they don't typically operate through affiliated colleges. And there are deemed universities, one like yours, like Diva Patil University. So it's going to get a UGC status, is what I have read about. But there are those universities, and there are institutes of national importance like IITs, NITs, and ISERs. They are mainly government funded, but they are very competitive also. But there are these three options which are always open to you to pursue your future studies. And I will try to give you an idea of how you can get into these institutes. But for really the premier institutes like IITs, they generally ask for joint admission test. It's called as JAT JAM, I think. And you need to qualify certain exams to be there. But all of you can qualify if you just have 55% of your marks. You just have to attempt these joint admission tests. And if you want to pursue even higher for PhD, you can actually write exams like UGC NET, and I will give an idea of what UGC NET is. And there are other exams like GATE, and there are fellowships, and there's a whole, in current times, there is a whole list of fellowships that one can apply. And if you secure fellowships, it's much easier for you to study further with no payment whatsoever. And there are other universities like TIFR, which is deemed university. It's a private funded university, but these also have very high reputation when it comes to research or education that it provides. So in these cases also, you have certain exams to qualify, and you just need BSc degree, and then you appear for a graduate school exam. And there are also integrated programs like MSc and PhD integrated programs. So that's also one thing you can opt for. And definitely, if one takes a conventional route is of just studying bachelor's and then they go for master's, they can 100% write certain exams, and then they can take up PhD also. And even PhD can be secured without writing exams or being a project assistant in institutes. And then you again have to qualify certain criteria in UGC to become a PhD scholar. That is by you have to secure senior research fellowship. So there are each step of the way one can think of. If you don't secure certain fellowships in advance or in earlier, you can always opt for them afterwards. So there's a whole area open for you to pursue doctoral studies and further. And there are also certain opportunities like, there are research centers like Baba Atomic Research Center. You can, even as bachelor students, you can, or final year students, you can apply for it. And after masters also. So after each level, like being engineering students or bachelors or masters, you can be a trainee in Baba Atomic Research Center, and you can actually pursue a career by applying there, and then you can pursue a career as a research scientist. And there's also Defense Research Development Organization, DRDO. There are certain examples that I'm quoting. So the idea is that it's really broad. You can select what you wish for at a very early age, and it's always recommended that you start before the final year of your uh, bachelor studies or final year of your master studies, to plan in advance of how you're going to proceed next. And if you want to be a part of DRDO, you may have to appear for talent, a test, entrance test. And to pursue many of these, or even if you want to go into normal colleges to study your postgraduate education or master studies, you can apply for multiple scholarships. There is a whole list of it, and please keep this in mind. You can write it down if you want. It's vidya.in or study in India government.in. So these are websites, the links that I have provided here. You can go there, and you can also directly find a whole list of scholarship schemes that are provided in India. And also, not only to study in India, but to study abroad, you have a lot of opportunities. There are scholarships that are provided. I will enlist a few in the coming slides. And for those with high merit, please opt or aspire for Inspire program, um, which is very reputed, and it gives you, definitely there's a lot of money that is given to you. Each member is given about 80,000 rupees annually. But also it comes and it's also available for master level courses. And besides that, there are also MS PhD programs, integrated programs in with Inspire, and also you can pursue PhD or doctoral studies in future. So please go through the links, and I would ask Dr. Sunil Gaikwad to sort of provide it to you, so that you can go through and have an idea in advance of how you could proceed in future. And these are a few examples which are there. It's also available. Beauty of these scholarships is that it is actually um, also, many of these scholarships keep in mind for the reserved categories, and it gives you enough money to sort of survive and pay your tuition fees. So please keep these. This is one list that I have provided. Go through them. And the very important step towards becoming an assistant professor in future, or means professorship in future, or even carrying on research, is CSIR UGC NET exam. It's an exam that every individual can take up, but it's after masters. So you should actually start planning it when you enter your postgraduate degree, that is your master's platform. And if you qualify this exam, CSIR UGC NET, it's a lifelong certification that you have, that gives you an entry towards universities or colleges, and you can become come into lecturership or teaching positions. And it's conducted twice in a year, in June and November each year. So even if you give, like, before the age of 31, you can give multiple attempts for this. So I would really recommend that everyone should opt for these exams. And yeah, if you qualify a junior research fellowship qualification using this, and there's a cutoff, like net is yeah, if there are 100 students, there is a cutoff of about 20-30% that goes into JRF qualification, the top 30%. And then they can pursue their research career in many of these CSR institutes. You can opt any of these CSR institute depending on the subject that you want to choose, uh, subject area that you wish to choose. So it provides you fellowship for about 5 years. And currently, I think it is about 45,000 per month, and it's enough for people to really have a good financial income as well. Yeah, I did watch another video about CSIR institutes that was given in a very broad manner. So you can select depending on the subject area of your choice. So when you talk about chemistry, it's very broad. you have multiple subjects. Even if you say organic chemistry, it again broadens and it widens, it multiplies into multiple branches. It is also a mix of few subjects, like it is about microbiology can come in, molecular biology can come in, simple biology can, cell biology can come in, and you can make a combinatorial subject choice. And many of these research institutes have, if you go through the research topics or the themes, you'll see special names given to it. So as somebody would call me, I am a bioorganic chemist. Even though I have a BSc chemistry degree, I have an organic chemistry master's degree, but then I have acquired few skill sets which tends to be in between organic chemistry and biology. That's why I'm called as a bioorganic chemistry. So you can choose, because it's a huge platform, you can just select based on your interest, your skill set, to pursue whichever kind of study you want to do in future. And besides the normal Indian government scholarships, there are also scholarships to study abroad. So this is the link, www.gyandhan.com. Please go through that. You have a huge list of different scholarships that are provided by Indian government or different private institutes, such as Fulbright Nehru Masters Fellowship, and JN Tata Endowment, Erasmus Mundus joint master programs. And besides that, there are also exchange programs that I will come to. That is, a part of studies could be carried out in India and part of study abroad. So such fellowships also exist, and they are also specially given to reserved categories. There are a lot of concessions, and your tuition fee will be totally waived off. So totally, or at least a large part of that will be waived off. So you can opt to study like that. And there are these other two links that I found. Is this We Make Scholars. Yeah, one link that I found. This also enlists a few of these scholarships that you can opt for. And yeah, this last link gives you a lot of idea of different universities that are there. You can opt for any. And a general consensus is that getting into IIT is more difficult than getting into Harvard, which is the top college that exists. So, you can always choose where you want to go and what you want to do. So there are also these financial resources that help you pursue master studies, MS studies in USA. So you have to just apply. Please look out for the time and date when the applications are to be carried out, and the benefits that are going to be provided by these fellowships. So if you even fail at one, you can always opt a second one. And it's better to have an idea of what exists, where you can, even if one doesn't work, and even if all of these fellowships, if you can't secure any of these, there are always opportunities to pursue next uh, career step or next educational step, that is post graduation. You can get into any of these colleges even without all of this, but it's only that it's better to have a fellowship, because that gives you a strong point in your resume or curriculum vitae, that that you are skilled or you are well aware or informed. And that's one of the things that many women tend not to look at, because we are generally very busy with many other work that goes on in our lives, that we tend not to be aware of these things. And the very main key to succeeding in your life and career is awareness. Today you don't have to know everything on your mind, but you should know how to, what is the way to get there. And it's available, it's right there in front of you now. As you know that we are all having a virtual meet at this point, that means we have access to computer, we have access to internet. Please make use of all of such information. Wherever you get a link, go through that link and find information, and it will, I, I ensure you that it helps you in a great way to proceed in your future. So yeah, moving on, I have some little basic idea of to give how to pursue masters in Germany, because I've been in Germany for now about 7 years, and I've connected and contacted a few students, and then they have given me the idea that um, a master's degree in Germany is actually very cheap to pursue, which is an information that we didn't have when we were studying, or we were having a conventional route and we had a good career so far. But there are also opportunities today that being in India, you can always pursue studies here in different international countries. And this is one of the fellowships called DAD. It's actually an exchange, German academic exchange service that I did talk about earlier, that you can do part of your studies in India and you can do a part of studies also abroad. And you also paid, even if you're doing masters, like about 800 euros stipend per month. And it's only that you have to secure that. The general cutoff requires GRE or TOEFL, and you have to have good GPA. Here they mention about 2.7 to 6 out of 6, but yeah, our GPA system is a little different. Here, okay, I'm sorry. Yep. Okay, I moment. Yeah. So you could also pursue it in Germany. Uh, the very key to it is that if you want to pursue it, please start a year in advance, because the procedure is really long. Here, uh, oh, the semester begins in October, but in year before, that is when you are in the end of your bachelor studies, you should already gather information maybe a year in advance, that is in November, and then you submit an application in January, and yeah, find housing and apply for visa, and by October you can actually join for the master studies. So here, the most important aspect is that your scores are supposed to be good. You have to have a little bit of German language proficiency, and you you have to, okay, there's a bit of interference, sorry. You have to already have an idea of which kind of subject do you want to pursue and the university that where you wish to pursue. So you can go through the profiles of different research professors and their work, and you can select and you can apply to them directly with all of your credentials, and that's the way to proceed there. And general requirements are simple: bachelor degree, a language certificate, and a visa. Definitely, if you're accepted into that program, you can also apply for visa. And Germany has a huge, it has a very good expenditure for science, R&D, that is research and development. A great part of GDP goes into this in German structure. Multiple institutes are there, very high reputed institutes are there. As you can see, like in the leading institutions in Nature Index, the kind of publications they come out of such institutes. Max Planck Society stands at number third, and it also Helmholtz is featured in the list. Yeah, everywhere top is Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's a huge, because like CSIR, Chinese Academy of Sciences is a very broad category. A lot of money goes into the sector there for research as well. Well, if you look at the German structure, they fund a lot for basic research. So there are these federal institutes, Helmholtz Association and Max Planck, and research infrastructures. They are funded by people's taxes and also by a government. And there are universities, they fall in between the basic and applied research. And so there are universities, if you are very industry oriented, you can always look for options which are more applied research oriented. And when it comes to industrial research, it's more private money has to go in, or you have to secure a lot of fellowships to carry out studies here in such institutes. So, and there are a lot of fellowships that are provided in these countries. It's the reputed Alexander von Humboldt grant, be it DARD, be it DFG. Uh, all of these institutes have their own scholarships or fellowships for you to carry out research here or studies here. So this is more for doctoral research program that I'm talking about. So you can pursue a lot of things and a lot of different fields, and you also get paid for all of these things. So I was a part of Max Planck and Leibniz Association, and both of which I was exposed to, and the structure is very different. Because here in Max Planck, it's more about basic research that is carried out, and in Leibniz Association, it's a mix of both. There's a lot of application oriented research that goes on. And if one opts for industry, please always choose in advance that it has to be a little application oriented. And if you are choosing academics, you can there is a range of basic research to applied research. And when I say applied research, it has to be a little bit what is in demand in the industries, and most of which would be about, say, production, large scale production of, say, pesticides, herbicides, or it could be like glass industry or so. You can always choose which kind would you like to have in future. So I think with this, I would like to proceed towards my career profile. um, and I'll give you a little bit of idea of the kind of research that or work that I have done in the past. Just like you, I started out with bachelor's of chemistry from a women's college that was back then. Today it's a co-ed college, Abeda Inamdar College, and during which I was also part of exploratory and national service scheme. So for women, one thing is that, you know, um, the very, very strong advice that I will have is that please have additional qualifications even when you're doing bachelor's qualifications or exposure to certain different aspects. You can choose to do summer internships or projects in different universities to just get an idea of how the system works. And when I was a part of member of exploratory, it was an intercollegiate educational there was a group of professors. They came together and they were giving really guidance of how one could proceed. So if there are such communities which exist, which give you information of how you can pursue your career, please be in touch. Please be or follow certain blogs by these reputed be in networks like LinkedIn, where you can follow the career profile of many you know uh, what do you call professors or people who are achievers. So you keep a track of that in the very beginning so that you can choose where to go or proceed. Sorry, and then I did my master's in organic chemistry from Department of Chemistry, and I believe the structure is the same. You had to appear for an entrance examination back then, and they had a cumulative marking system of our percentage that we got in bachelor's, and also whatever marks we had from the entrance examination. They combined that and they put up a list, and we were selected for this organic chemistry program. And by the end of it, and definitely when you enroll in masters, the very strong suggestion is that please think of CSIR net examination in advance, because that already gives you an idea. If you want to proceed for research, that's a very good stepping stone. And then after that, when I qualified as CSIR JRF, I got funding for my PhD degree, and which I carried out in National Chemical Laboratory. And then after which I proceeded to do my postdoctoral studies in Germany. I was in Max Planck Institute for Polymer Chemistry. And then I joined as a research scientist here in INM Leibniz Institute of New Materials, Saarbrücken. So my work in PhD was more chemistry based. It was thorough basic chemistry or understanding of molecules. And then I proceeded like to a mix of from chemistry to biology. And and by the end, I was actually in between. I was in biology and materials chemistry and organic chemistry all combined. So I would give you an idea of how I proceeded, and it's going to be a little bit deep into chemistry. So please bear with me for a while. um, So when my doctoral research work, the theme was synthetic oligomers with heterogeneous backbones featuring alpha beta conjugated building blocks. It's a very big topic, but if you have to really simplify, it is about synthetic peptides that I had prepared using heterogeneous backbones. That is, I was using L amino acid and the stereochemistry of D amino acids. And then I was also selecting a few alpha and beta amino acids. So if you know amino acid, alpha amino acid, it is one carbon is flanked on one side with amine and the other side with carboxylic acid. And if you do some modifications to that, which is unnatural, it will give you beta amino acids. And you can have whole range of these structures or whole modifications on these structures. So it's a whole big area you can open up. So you can make oligomers with natural ones, unnatural ones you can combine. So that was the theme of my work. So it was you join one amino acid with the next amino acid via a coupling. That is, the carboxylic acid joins with an amine and it forms an amide bond. So this is the basic of this work that I had done. Uh, it's very fundamental, but it grows on that. So you have different kind of synthesis. You have solution-based synthesis, and there is solid-phase synthesis to get these. So I won't go into details. Here, so you could choose different amino acids and then they would give rise to different structures. And my interest was to identify which kind of structures will be formed and how it could be achieved. So there were, it's called as foldamers. So when you join these amino acids in certain format, in different tissue chemistries, you'll get different structures and they will be very conformationally ordered, or it looks something like that, say, as an example, it helps you understand how the receptors work. So these molecules, when they join together, they kind of form helical structure and how the receptor would be identified. And this is not a foldamer exactly, but it's DNA molecule. But if one has to understand how the folding happens, it has to do with multiple hydrogen bonds that are there in between these bases, and also the particular helical structure that it forms. So this the field actually helped me understand how the structures are created within biology, like proteins. Every fold is important. Every structural aspect is important for its function in the end. So there are, when you go deeper, there are lots of aspects that we learn in our bachelor days about interactions, non-covalent interactions. There is aromatic stacking, there is hydrogen bonding between an electronegative and an electropositive unit. And also, when just solvents are added to certain molecules, they can acquire certain shapes. And if you just include like metals in between because of the electrostatic forces, a molecule can acquire certain shape. And there is also dihedral constraints that one amino acid or any structure has. Um, it can have certain angles which the structure exists naturally. And there is also how much it can be twisted to kind of afford into such structures. So the techniques that I was using was NMR spectroscopy. I'm not very sure that if we learned the real basics of that during bachelor's, but yeah, these are certain techniques that are used to find structural aspects of the molecules that we create or we synthesize. And there's two-dimensional and NMR scope, spectroscopy, circular dichroism, and crystallographic studies. And additionally, I was also using a lot of molecular modeling tools to identify the structure. So why I'm giving this idea is that even though I did just chemistry and I did more of studies of synthesis in my master's, I had to expand on that. It was not only confined to synthesis, but there were other branches that added up during my research. So if one is interested, say, in computational, you can always choose to do computational chemistry. So there is that choice. And if you are interested in chemistry, you can always exchange chemical data to computers and you can get uh, today you can generate hundreds of results. Today you can find drug candidates using that. Today you can just see how your in your body the kind of folding that happens to certain, say, if one has to solve the problem of Alzheimer's, you can look for the beta sheet structures that are there. You can solve the structure, how it is creating the issue. So physiology, medicine, computational, biology, chemistry, everything is connected today. So just to give an idea of how I came to this, I was studying very simple motif called reverse turns in proteins. So if you look at protein secondary structure, it forms beta sheet, and there are also helix that is a second, but I'm looking more at beta sheets. You see that this structure tends to turn here. This is called as a reverse turn, and that is very important for us to hold its structure and also for the stability of this structure. And then in organic synthesis, this is also used as as a catalysis. And so in biology, beta turns are found in all of these proteins, most of the proteins. And when I was trying to identify the structural aspect of that, here you will see that it is made out of 4 amino acids. But when I combined a planar amino acid of this anthranilic acid, it's a planar thing in structure. It cannot twist and turn too much. But when I added a proline unit here, suddenly it just clashes and then it forms a very unique 9-membered hydrogen bond ring complex. It looks very much like a reverse turn, and it has features also closer to a reverse turn. So you can make different molecules based on this little turn, and then you can add different units to the left and right, and you can create different shapes. So while I was studying a stoichiometric variation, that is, if you say that I add one molecule to the other in 1:1 ratio, it can form such a shape. But if I just vary like one molecule into 4:1 ratio, it can form such a structure. So just with this example, when I proceeded by 1:2 stoichiochemistry of proline and anthranic acid. So one would assume that these two structures would form a planar structure, and the proline will give it a twist. So the assumption is that it should give a structure of this kind. So this was a molecular modeled structure. But when you did do an experiment that is a simple NMR, I found that um, there were unique signals that appeared, and now the entire study turned into this. What is uh, this particular signal that I'm getting? And it is supposed to be of one of these NHs, that is amines. And the amine that is hydrogen bonded is generally, it doesn't shift in NMR studies. That is, when you add or if you heat it, it doesn't break. Or if you just add certain solvents to compete with this hydrogen bonding, it doesn't break. And I saw that my structure looked something like this, which is very unusual. And then you carry out extensive studies, to verify why the structure looks like this. How? So this is 2D NMR. It's too complicated, I'm not going to explain. But so then the study is surrounded around whether it's the hydrogen bonding, or is it the aromatic stacking between these aromatic blocks that are there, or is it, the how can we study that? Is by, if we just take off this NH, then there'll be no hydrogen bonding. So the structure either would look like this or it should look like that. So the identification was the um, important aspect that I was looking for. And then I did a lot of synthesis. So in synthetic chemistry, you have like, if this, the way the structure looks is not the whole story. There is a whole step of creating this molecule, and then I created molecule in absence of this hydrogen bond donor, that is replaced that NH with O, and then check the structure. It looked something like this. That means without a hydrogen bonding donor here, there will be no structure. And there was that another shift also of NMR that explained how was the aromatic stacking happening. And you could see like that was also an important feature that was helping to hold the structure in that particular shape. And if you just change also the stereochemistries between two different prolines, and mine was actually a heterologous heterochiral analog. There's L and D here, which was giving a zipper kind of a shape. And uh, and if you remove that, it will take up a helical kind of an architecture. So in short, With all of those studies, we came to a conclusion that hydrogen bonding is a key to for this structure to exist and form a 26-membered large hydrogen bonding ring. And there is also aromatic stacking that happens. There is stereo control that plays a key role. So in short, you need to have all of these interactions in place, that is hydrogen bonding, aromatic stacking, and stereo control, to hold a structure of that kind. So you can also envision to make larger peptides of this kind using the simple study that you do in, in the process. And this is the whole scheme, how it happens. You start with really smaller building blocks like nitrobenzoyl chloride, you couple them, and then you create. So you'll be confused with all of this, but you can create larger structures. You can study the structural features using CD and yeah, other techniques. So what we do is that after all of that, the studies are done, you write publications and you publish them. And these are a few publications that I had along the way. And you are I and our my projects were funded by CSIR New Idea Fund and DST, and also I was a CSIR JRF scholar, so I was getting money um, paid by the scholarship. And also there was, yeah, international fellowships. And yeah, and it was a combination of crystal structure studies, so there were scientists involved, NMR studies and bioactivity studies and computational studies in total. So this was my group there. Moving to the postdoctoral research, it's not going to be much of chemistry. It was a mix of chemistry, material sciences, and there was a mix of bio and biology. It was more about cell studies. So what we were attempting is that we were trying to create materials where we could bioconjugate the active blocks. Active blocks is bioactive molecules, but initially they will be masked or protected by certain groups that the cells cannot identify them. But the moment you release them by ultraviolet rays or UV visible rays, you can generate the bioactive molecules, and the cells will identify that part and they will adhere to that portion. So that was the study. It is more for, say, um, to cure certain diseases, uh, that you can inject certain biomaterials into your skin or under your skin. You can apply light, you can release the agent, the bioactive agent, and then you can get the cure in the area. That is called a spatio-temporal control, the time that we want, the space where we want. So it was a mix of all studies. I had to delve into biological aspects of how the cell sits in an environment, how the cell interacts with an environment. So if there is a cell, it interacts with the extracellular matrix proteins, and then it forms certain interactions, and that's how it proceeds to give whatever result it has to give. And then I was studying in different material platforms. I was trying to study adhesion and migration and proliferation of cells. And then the tool that I was using was photoactivatable biological ligands. And then I would design them, synthesize them, fabricate them, and do the biological studies. So it was more a collaborative effort. And yeah, you use UV spectroscopy and HPLC to determine how the molecule is cleaved, and if the molecule is released, and yeah, and so on. So this is something, then we delve into biological aspect, how the cell sits on the materials, how cells spread. So you have to give certain agents here on the material platform so that the cells can identify and spread and multiply. I was looking at one particular RGD based molecule called as alpha 5 beta 1 integrin. And when the molecule is released, basically you can also on a it's supposing it's a 2D platform, it's a glass slide which is coated with the whole um, caged or deactivated molecule earlier, and then you can release this channel by activating with light, and then you can draw lines and the cells will exactly move through those lines. This was the study. And it was also proven that you could inject that into a mouse and then apply light, and then the biological agents can be released within. So yeah, so this was my molecule, did the whole synthesis, and then we studied with HPLC and all, how the release happens. So when you subject to light and give pulses of UV visible light, the active compounds gets generated, and you plot them and you study. And you can also create lights like this. So this is an area where the bioactive molecules are not there. These are the areas where the biomolecules are there, and the cells will tend to align in those channels exactly. And you can also guide the cell to move to in particular lines. So that gave a spatiotemporal control of that. And the second project actually was about wound healing. Wound healing actually happens if you give them growth factors. And I hope that it's too broad. So yeah, growth factors. So I was actually masking these growth factors to give a three-dimensional yeah, so going simple. So the attempt was to, in a three-dimensional environment, I had these masked growth factor agents, and then if you shine light exactly in the area where there was activation is where the cells will show their activity, and then they will form tubules like this, microtubules. Vasculogenesis or the blood vessel formation only happens in those areas. So this was the study. So in short, then again you publish the work and all. In short, my group looked something like this. It was combination of organic polymer chemists, it was organic chemists, material chemists, biologists, and there were also biologists. So it was a whole mix of that, and this was my supervisor. She is basically an polymer chemist, but then now today she runs a group called as dynamic interfaces in Leibniz Institute currently. The very important aspect that I have to talk about is that for women to work in, there are lab safety rules that one must really follow. And it's something that one must demand in an environment like this. There should be protective clothing, and there should be fire safety training, and there should be safe disposal system of chemical waste, which has to be introduced in the very early stages. And we should always know, when you're working with chemicals, material safety data sheet of how molecule any chemical is corrosive, is it toxic, or it can cause, is it flammable, or can it cause corrosion, or is irritation, and such things. So such things have to be learned, and when you're working in a laboratory setup, please make sure that these informations are very much at your disposal. You are aware of them, and you make sure that you work in protected environments. And being girls, there's one aspect that I have to add, that uh, all these chemicals do have adverse effect on our health, and if handled irresponsibly, can have really long-term effects on us. Certain really simple information, like don't leave experiments at the lab. You should know how accidents are to be handled, and don't experiment on yourself. You have to dress appropriately, that is a goggle. You have to have protective even shoes properly, and lab coats for your safety, gloves if you're really handling bad chemicals or corrosive chemicals. Don't taste them, and don't eat or drink in lab, and such things. And also waste disposal is a very key aspect. One of the very important aspects that I have learned working in international labs, and also back in our country, is that the waste disposal systems are very different. And here it's more protected, and there is a very good system that takes care of all of these. So being a woman, I can say that that's a very important information that we must have about when you're really pursuing career in chemistry. And yeah, so I just added that slide because that's something that I thought that one should know about. And just going through that and the profile that I've had, the information that I wish to give to you is that today the current scientific institutional structure is no more very traditional or conventional. Nobody says that I am an organic chemist. and nobody says I'm an inorganic chemist. It's the subjects today are also mixed, something of this kind: chemical biology, bioanalytical chemistry, macromolecular electro-optical material. So they have become very interdisciplinary in current stage. Most of the normal basic science structure kind of doesn't exist anymore, or if there is, it's only up to say basic levels. But in bigger institutes, they have really revamped it, or they have changed the structure. So today, if one has, like, definitely you young bright minds, you have an idea of which kind of skills do you possess. Is it analytical kind of a skill that you have? Are you more curious into understanding fundamental science, or are you into more application based science? So you can choose where you have to proceed. You can mix maths with science, you can maths with chemistry, you can mix maths with biology, you can mix, see, physics with any chemistry. So it's a whole mix, so you can choose your subject of choice. And when you go through the research areas in every individual website, if you opt, say you opt IIT, and if you're opting IIT Bombay, please go through the research profiles of scientists, because their area where of research that they do is very specific. And you can always, if your liking is that, you can apply to them, you can write to them and ask if there is a possibility or vacancy, and they will definitely give you internships in initial stages, or they'll give you an entry to get experienced with the lab environment and the science that happens in the lab. So that gives you an idea, or gives you a possibility to explore different areas. Even if you take one internship in one subject in your FYBSc summer break, you can choose another subject next time, and you can apply and learn as much as you can learn at this point, so that it gives you an easier way of choice in the future. Besides that, I also want to introduce something called as MOOC. It's massive online, open online courses. It was an initiative started by bigger institutes like Harvard and Stanford. There were certain professors who came together and they started online platform. And currently in the pandemic era, most of the studies are actually online. So this gives you a very good platform to pick and select and pursue what you like. There are many different platforms. They provide various kind of courses. This is some popular courses I just had jotted down. Was introduction to computer science, learning how to learn, machine learning, science of happiness, artificial. So these are subjects which are very non-conventional. It doesn't exist in a textbook. You will not see it in a curriculum. These are certain things just for your own interest, just for your own exposure, and to add to your CV, that you understand. Even today, psychology and biotechnology, or psychology and chemistry, go hand in hand. So these subjects you can have, because certain job profiles demand these. If you are aware of certain softwares which is not a part of your chemistry curriculum, so you can add to your profile. So this is one information that I thought it was very important. And the best point is, it's free, it's affordable, there is a broad selection. Please think of it, opt. And in all of this career that I have followed, there are certain skills that I have seen. These are very elementary, these are very basic and very important, that one must not skip. That is, I say the points are skills to master. That is communication, presentation skills, networking, and writing skills. These are things that is not generally a part of curriculum, but definitely it's now implemented at a larger scale in our bachelor studies or master studies. It's that you try to communicate, you have to learn the way it's not only communicate, it's just in the technical front also, you should know certain words, certain definitions in hand. It has to be clear and effective when you communicate, because it's now more a collaborative world, it's more interdisciplinary. So communication is very important in future, in any kind of job that you choose. Presentation skills, that is to speak in public, because the higher you grow in a career ladder, you have to have good presentation skills. You will have to speak to public, you will have to inform them, you know, educate them, and you have to have good research in presentation. You have to just go through and you have to connect everything, and it has to be relevant to the topic. And you have to know networking. That's something that many of us do lack, because in future it is not going to be a basic fundamental lab rat situation that you're sitting in one lab in one specific position. Your science has now progressed, it has spread, so it has to have collaborations. And also the fact is today that fundamental research has lesser chance of being funded. But if there is really application based interdisciplinary topic that is there of relevance, that gets more chance of getting funded. So collaborations are super necessary. Contacts are necessary, because then is, you know, the profiles of different scientists, you can connect with them. Writing skills are also necessary, because publishing is a very basic fundamental part of all the studies that we do, you know. Or even if it is like simple writing blogs or simple writing uh, uh, scientific articles, you need to have the idea, and you should have the idea of how the journal styles look like. So this is my suggestion to you. And in general, the triangle of success is based on three things. That's the skills that you have, the attitude that you have, and the knowledge that you have. It's not that only you score 90-95% in your bachelor degree, or means any degree, and you feel like you are at the top of the world, top of the game. It is not. You need to have certain skill sets. There should be time management, goal setting, communication, interpersonal skills. That is again networking. No. And in attitude, definitely you have to be motivated, you have to have confidence, and you have to have optimism, you know, cooperative, and yeah. So, and knowledge is definitely whatever you learn through textbooks and your, you know, professors educate you with. So this has to be a combination of everything, and that only leads to success in career or in life. And the last word that I have to say is that it's your attitude, not the aptitude. That is just the knowledge, you know. That will determine your altitude. So where you can grow, you know, sky is the limit. Please approach with, you know, highest enthusiasm, and with good motivation and self confidence. And the end, thank you for your kind attention. And yeah, and now I would like to take certain questions, and I would try to clarify as much as I can with the information that I have in hand. And I hope, if not all, at least a few people are surely motivated to pursue future studies and future career in science. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Saudam Vakil. Hello. Hello. Yeah. I can't hear you. Can you? Hello.
Ma'am, there are certain questions in a chat box.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Who's that? Yeah. Please, could you ask your question again to me? Hello.
Hello, ma'am. My name is
Yeah.
Subhash Chauhan.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Hello. Yeah.
two products are means two products are you are producing from
Yeah.
cell adhesion molecules, which is related to immunology. So,
Yeah.
what is the basic mechanism of that product?
Yeah,
So,
okay. So, okay. Once again, because I didn't really explain too much because I was thinking that it's too broad for you. But yeah, so when you talk about the cell, how the cell actually sticks to the extracellular matrix, it is via integrins. There is that integrin receptor on the cells, and then in extracellular matrix, there are plenty of proteins or ligands they are, and this ligand actually has a unit called as RGD, the unit RGD, that is aspartic acid, glycine and arginine, arginine, glycine and aspartic acid. So this moiety has like a bend. It really very much fits with the, this was the structure that I had for it. So it's something of this kind. You can see that the integrins look like this. It's yeah, and then if it is caged, generally it cannot interact. But the moment I provide the molecule, and this molecule alpha 5 beta 1 is actually peptidomimetic based on the arginine, glycine, aspartic acid structure. So that part it can identify, the integrins on the cells can identify, and that's how it gets the signal that now you can spread. So what happens is that the moment you put it on the platform and you leave the cells there, the cells will identify and they will spread actually. I haven't included many of the pictures, but the cells tend to really flatten on that surface. And that's where it will just form stripes, or it adheres to the surface. Is that clear now?
ma'am, it is practically possible if human
Yeah.
live human can injected with this uh, uh,
E-
at
Yeah. So you
adhesions.
mean that the adhesion is possible inside, right, the body. So these studies were carried out in rats. Okay. So what you do is that I have shown you just a two-dimensional picture of that. You can do that in a three-dimensional environment. That is a gel. Gel can encapsulate these molecules, and then you can introduce this gel into the rat. And what you have to do, but yeah, it's only that it has to be at the surface of the skin. I mean, like it cannot be too deep, because the light that you shine doesn't pass through the skin so much. So but it is possible that when you shine the light, it crosses the barrier, and then it generates the active molecules within that, and then you can get the result where you have basically incorporated the material with the bioactive peptide. That's a possibility. And the studies right now is that um, it's generally, it can be also to treat, say, bigger diseases like cancer. If suppose that you have a cancer somewhere deep in your tissue, right, and then you inject this biomaterial into that, and you get some anti-cancer agents embedded in that system, and you have to get the a light source there, and now people are using something called as optical fibers to get the light into the body. And it's a possibility that you can activate the bioactive molecules there, and then you can get the effect exactly at the point where you want. It is possible. But the research is ongoing. It's a whole community of photoactivatable chemists out there who are trying this right now. Yeah.
Thank you,
Did I
ma'am.
answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. uh Anybody else?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, hello, Shashank.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it was a much
Yeah.
needed webinar and motivation.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
my question is, what's the difference you feel when you pursued your PhD and postdoc, ma'am? And what's the difference of depth of chemistry?
Depth of chemistry. Yeah. So that's something, at least in my case, it was like we were creating and we were synthesizing really a lot. And here in international institutes, current trend is that the chemistry is actually weighing a little less. Most of the people are more application oriented. They tend to sort of depend for, if there is a molecule that has to be synthesized, say 10 times, they would rather depend on an industry, and then they get the molecule prepared there, and then they test the materials. That's why the publication quality generally tends to increase, or it's fast forward. That's one of the advantages. But 100%, the knowledge and the grilling and the, what do you call, the practice that we get in our country is very vital when you come abroad. But that for PhD phase, I feel is very important, that you tend to prepare and or you get your skills really, what do you call, finished. You need to have best skills, and when you come here you have a broader overview of things, more application oriented, where it can tend to, where you can participate or collaborate and such.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Ma'am, is it difficult that much difficult to pursue R&D abroad?
You mean in industries or academia?
Academia, ma'am.
Academia, no. I think that, see, if you are having, I've seen lots of students who come, the best, that's why my really honest advice to you is, please look for internships in the early age. Please look, gather information, do some projects, in even in your bachelor's. Most of the people tend to overlook that, but if you have that, it adds to your CV, it gives you weightage. And you need to have like a good cutoff mark also. Please be in, say, about in distinction category, you can apply for any of these positions. And if you get PhD positions, it's mostly, yeah, you look in, if it matches your profile really well, scientists do tend to take you because they trust at least the quality of Indian students. That's my general experience, at least in Germany.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Hello.
Mega ma'am.
Ah.
Okay.
Hello.
Uh,
Okay.
I think there is no question from student side. So
Okay.
thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing such a lot of information with all of us and plenty of opportunities in science.
Okay.
Now,
Thank
I
you.
would like to request our Honorable Principal Sir, Dr. Ranjit Patil, to share some thoughts with all of us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. First of all, on behalf of Dr. D.Y. Patil Arts, Commerce and Science Women's College and Co-ed College, I really take this opportunity to thank Roshna ma'am for accepting our
Oh, thank you.
invitation, sparing her valuable time, and even sharing her views and thought on different topics. I think which is really much needed for all the students when they are pursuing their graduations and post graduations. I think whatever you, ma'am, have explained to the students, it's definitely going to boost their confidence even
Yeah.
while studying and all. Because sometimes it happen that all students they feel that whatever they are doing is like a blind study. They are not doing anything with the direction and all. But I think such a sessions are definitely going to help them to get at least a certain track and to march towards a certain direction. So I really thank even all coordinators,
Yeah.
Sunil Gaikwad sir, even Meghna ma'am, and all the staff members for taking such a efforts to have such a session for students. Even I was also listening to ma'am whatever she was explaining, and even whatever the doubts she has cleared. So it itself shows that how much experience she has in the field, and even her interest towards. I think once we used to have that, so automatically certain desires comes as and when you change your attitude. I think the further things really become a simple. So
Yeah.
I really congratulate the coordinator and I thank Roshna ma'am really for sparing her valuable time. And I definitely look forward that some sort of association with Roshna ma'am will be there with our college, so that it
Okay.
will be again in a concrete way. It will really help our students to go with the further things over there. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, sir. Such an honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, some of our college students would like to share some thought with all of us. So, I
Okay.
would request, first of all, Jannavi Kulkarni.
Good afternoon, respected principal sir, our guest, Dr. Roshna Vakil ma'am, all the teachers and my dear friends. My name is Janvi. I'm a student of TY BSc Dr. DY Patil Arts, Commerce Science Women's College. I would really like to express my views on today's lecture. It was very helpful and informative lecture. We got many new ideas and also we got to know about different career options which are very encourageable for women. We know nowadays women want to be employed and want to empower themselves to be independent. So, in today's lecture, we got a thorough information about the career scope in science, which is really helpful for our further life. And also, not only regarding the career scope, you also told us about the competitive exams and the perfect time when we need to apply for it and also how to prepare for it. So, thank you so much for that. And once again, uh, again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. And we also assure you that we'll share this information with more and more people. And also, I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Ranjit Patil sir, our OS Shweta Diwar ma'am, Sunil sir, and Trupti ma'am of the chemistry department for organizing such a wonderful and helpful lecture for us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Janvi. Now, one more student, Monica Darby, would like to share.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Monica Dalvi. I'm TY BSc Chemistry student. I would like to thank our chief guest, Dr. Roshna Vakil ma'am, for today's lecture. It was very knowledgeable. The scope and career options you told are very easily approachable to girls. We actually didn't have that much of detailed knowledge about such interesting career options in science, especially in chemistry. Thank you for so much of information, which is really very helpful for us. So a big thank you to a Dr. Roshna Vakil ma'am. And I would
Thank
like to thank our principal Dr. Ranjit Patil sir for giving us this golden opportunity. And also I would like to thank organizer Sunil sir and Trupti ma'am and organizing committee for arranging such a dynamic program. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Monica. Now, Ravina Jadhav want to share something.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ravina Jadhav. I am TY BSc Chemistry student. I would like to tell you our chief guest, Dr. Roshna ma'am. That lecture was very inspiring and knowledgeable. The way you were interacting with students, way of explaining a science career, especially women's, it was amazing. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, our principal Ranjit Patil sir, and thank you all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravina. Now, Ravina Jagtap.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lavina, and I'm here to present the feedback for today's guest lecture. I would really like to thank you, our guest lecturer, Dr. Roshna Vakil, for visiting and enlightening us with the knowledge for today's lecture. Was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave us deep insights into the topic and also revealed some of interesting facts. The point where Dr. Roshna told about the career in chemistry was really very informative and inspiring. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Roshna for taking up out time from your busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank you, our principal, Dr. Ranjit Patil sir, for giving us permission to organize this lecture. Thank you very much for organizing such a wonderful lecture. And lately, thank you, Trupti ma'am and Sunil sir, for organizing this lecture. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, all of you students. Your feedback also encourage us to uh, arrange more and more such type of lectures. So now I would like to request Professor Shraddha Pathak ma'am to give the vote of thanks.
Hello, good afternoon, all. It gives me an immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this seminar to all the dignitaries assembled here. So, I would like to thank you, our chief guest, Dr. Roshna Vakil ma'am, who honored this function with her inspirational thoughts. And I would also like to thank our principal sir, Dr. Ranjit Patil sir, OS ma'am, Shweta ma'am, Trupti ma'am, and Gaikwad sir for arranging such a wonderful seminar for all the students. So last but not the least, our beloved students for thank you to the beloved students for glorifying the seminar. So once again, I thanks one and all present here. So thank you all, and we will stop our seminar here.